Hey guys, welcome to Cape and Cowl Cafe. I'm Nemo, and today we're going to be building the definitive roadmap for new Batman readers. If you've ever wanted to get into Batman comics and you just don't really have the energy to sift through over 2,000 issues worth of history, this video is for you. If you guys enjoy the video at any point today, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button, but let's hop right in. So, Batman has been around for a very long time, and getting into his comic books can be quite intimidating, especially because of the sheer volume of the number of issues and stories and arcs and all of that. It's a little much, it can be overwhelming. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys a very loose reading order that will kind of help streamline and simplify your experience. I will not be going over every single Batman issue ever made. That would be ridiculous. I am going to focus on the essential stories that define Batman as a character. I will be focusing on the biggest events in Batman's history, the major arcs that introduce new villains and new characters, turning points that permanently reshape the Bat family and change the status quo. These are the big stories. Let's get started. Now, you're probably expecting a list like this to start off with Batman Year One. It is on the list, but it's not first. First up, we're going to start off with Batman the Knight by Chip Zdarsky. Now, there aren't really a lot of stories that go over Bruce's early years training before he becomes the Dark Knight. We get tons of flashbacks and different Batman stories, but there's not a ton of arcs that fully focus on it. This story does exactly that. The Knight follows Bruce during the years he disappears from Gotham to train himself into the ultimate weapon against crime. The story moves across Europe and Asia, where Bruce seeks out specialists in deception, martial arts, escape artistry, psychology, and detective work. He's talented, but reckless and emotionally immature. His journey becomes intertwined with Anton, another gifted trainee whose worldview is more self-serving and cynical. Their friendship slowly fractures as Bruce realizes that skill without a moral code leads to corruption. Over time, Bruce begins understanding that becoming Batman isn't about mastering pain, it's about mastering his purpose. He learns restraint, discipline, and the value of symbolism. Everyone loves a good origin story, and this book simply stretches out that part of Batman's history and allows us to spend more time in that part of his life. Alright, next up we're going to be talking about Batman Year One by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. Batman Year One is just another classic Batman origin story, but instead of going over his years in training, it explores his first year operating as a vigilante in Gotham City. The story follows Bruce Wayne's return to Gotham and his first chaotic attempts at vigilantism. His early outings are messy and dangerous. He's beaten, nearly arrested, and unsure of how to make an impact. In parallel, Lieutenant Jim Gordon transfers to Gotham and quickly discovers a police department rotting with corruption under Carmine Falcone's influence. Both men are outsiders trying to clean up a system designed to resist change. The defining moment comes when Bruce realizes that fear must be weaponized. The bat crashing through his window inspires the symbol that will terrify criminals. From that point on, Batman becomes calculated and theatrical. Gordon slowly becomes his ally, and together they begin dismantling organized crime's hold on the city. And by the end of the story, Gotham City has a new Dark Guardian, the Batman. This story is really interesting because it's essentially being told from two different perspectives. One half is being told by Batman, who is recounting his first year acting as a vigilante in Gotham as the Batman. And the other half is being told by Jim Gordon, who has just moved his family to Gotham City and he is struggling to fight the corruption that has taken place in the Gotham City Police Department. It's really interesting stuff. This is also really a good book for people who love those early days Batman stories where he doesn't have limitless resources and he's more focusing on grounded street crime. Alright, next up you're going to want to read The Man Who Laughs by Ed Brubaker. This is a story that retells the first encounter between Batman and the Joker. Now what's cool about this one is it essentially retells their Golden Age origin, but it modernizes and streamlines it in a way where it fits into the modern day quite nicely actually. This story compares and contrasts Batman and the Joker's moral philosophies and introduces us to the sick and twisted relationship that they will come to have over the years. It's really good stuff. Alright, next up you're going to want to read Batman The Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. This is one of the most beloved Batman stories. It is held with such high regard and is constantly used for inspiration when adapting Batman into live action. The story begins with a killer named Holiday murdering members of Gotham's crime families on holidays, destabilizing Carmine Falcone's criminal empire. Batman, Jim Gordon, and Harvey Dent form an uneasy alliance to solve the murders while navigating mob politics and the increase in costume villains such as the Joker. Now, I'm not going to spoil the rest of the story in case you somehow haven't read this book, but essentially it's about Gotham's ecosystem changing. We see the fall of organized crime and the rise of costumed supervillains. It's really interesting stuff. Alright, next up you're going to want to read Dark Victory by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. This is a sequel to The Long Halloween, so it is a direct follow-up. In this story, we see the aftermath of the long Halloween as a new killer emerges targeting police officers connected to Harvey Dent. I'm not going to say much more about this part of the story because it is just so good. You need to go read it, please. I think that the Dark Victory story is arguably a little better than the long Halloween. I just think it's a more cohesive experience, but it's so good. This story also gives us a brief origin for Dick Grayson. We see Bruce Wayne attending Haley's circus where he witnesses the murder of the Flying Graysons. Seeing himself in the boy, Bruce adopts him. As Dick uncovers Bruce's secret, he insists on helping. Through trial and error, Robin is born, bringing light into Batman's war. Alright, so that pretty much covers it for the stories taking place in Batman's early days. We are now up to year 3, so the next story I'm going to recommend is Batman Dark Patterns. This book is just an excellent standalone detective story for Batman. The book follows Batman solving all of these murders and crimes happening throughout the city, and he can't help but find patterns that connect all of them. He feels like he's going crazy, but by the end of the story, he finds the connection and solves the mystery. This book is just so good. Batman has to almost entirely rely on detective work rather than brute force. We also see Batman conflicted with the impact that his crime fighting has on smaller neighborhoods. It's just really interesting stuff. It's so good. Please go read it. Plus, the artwork by Hayden Sherman is just beautiful, and this book also introduces us to one of the creepiest Batman villains ever. Alright, next up on the list, I'm gonna have to recommend another book that came out recently. We got Batman and Robin Year 1 by Mark Waid and Chris Samney. This book focuses on the fragile, uncomfortable beginning of Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson's partnership, not as a perfectly functioning duo, but as two traumatized people trying to figure each other out. After adopting Dick following the murder of the Flying Graysons, Bruce initially keeps him at a distance. Dick is grieving, angry, and desperate for justice, while Bruce is terrified of failing the boy. As the dynamic duo begins operating together, their early missions are messy. Dick moves with flair and emotion, sometimes rushing into danger. Bruce is hyper-controlling, cold, and overly cautious. Their styles clash. Criminals then start to underestimate the Batman because of Robin. The story also follows a subplot where we see Child Protective Services begin to monitor the Wayne household after concerns are raised about Bruce's suitability as a guardian. Social workers conduct interviews, observe Dick's behavior, and question whether Bruce is emotionally equipped or even present enough to raise a child properly. At its core, this story is about Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson becoming father and son. Now, if you would like to see a different version of the Batman and Robin origin story, you could also read Robin Year 1 and Batgirl Year 1. Those stories really just cover the origins of the Bat family and showcases the beginnings of Robin and Batgirl's relationship. Alright, next up, you're going to want to read Superman, Batman, World's Finest. Now, this isn't really a single story paperback kind of deal. This is a run that is still going on to this day, at least at the time of this recording. This run is just really good if you want to see Batman interacting with other characters in the DC universe while still being relatively early in his career. This run mostly focuses on his relationship with Superman as they go on different kinds of adventures together, and every volume is kind of a different crisis that they're encountering. But we also get to see Robin in the later years of his career as Robin. You know, he's really close to becoming Nightwing here, and it's really good stuff. So this run kind of acts more of like a Batman Brave and the Bold type thing, where we just get to see Batman teaming up with different characters, and, you know, he gets into all kinds of crazy situations. It's really cool. All right, next up on the list, you're going to want to read Nightwing Year 1. This is the story of Dick Grayson leaving the Robin mantle and becoming his own man as Nightwing. The first half of the story follows Dick Grayson right after he is fired as Robin, and he is struggling to know who he is without Batman. He goes on a journey of self-discovery and makes two major stops. The first stop he makes is the circus, where he reconnects with some old friends, and the second stop is Metropolis, where he speaks with Superman. It's Clark who tells him a Kryptonian legend about a hero named Nightwing, a symbol for justice. Inspired by the story and ready to redefine himself, Dick adopts the name. The second half of the story focuses on Nightwing interacting with the brand new Robin, Jason Todd. They form a pretty rough but still brotherly relationship, and it's really interesting stuff. By the end of the story, Dick Grayson isn't Robin upgraded, he isn't Batman 2.0, he's his own man. Alright, next up on the list, you're going to want to read Batman the Killing Joke. Do not watch the movie, okay? The movie's terrible. Go read the book. This story focuses on the relationship between Batman and the Joker, exploring the idea that one bad day is all it takes to drive a man insane. The story opens with Batman visiting Arkham Asylum to speak with the Joker, only to discover that the Joker has escaped and a stand-in was left in his cell. Batman admits that he fears their endless cycle of violence will eventually end in one of them killing the other. The story then moves on to show the Joker shooting Barbara Gordon in the spine, paralyzing her. He then kidnaps her father, James Gordon, with the goal of proving that even the most moral man can be driven insane by a single traumatic day. This is one of the most influential Batman stories ever written, and it permanently changed Barbara Gordon's character forever. ever, eventually leading to her reinvention as Oracle in later DC stories. Alright, next up on the list, you're going to want to read Batman: A Death in the Family by Jim Starlin and Jim Aparo. This book is best known for the shocking death of Jason Todd, the second Robin. Okay, next up, you're going to want to read Batman: Nightfall. This story introduces the iconic villain Bane and also introduces Tim Drake as the new Robin. You can read the first volume if you kind of just want the gist of it, but if you want to read the whole thing, we also get to see Azrael taking up the mantle of Batman. Alright, next up, you're going to want to read Batman: No Man's Land, the story that follows a catastrophic earthquake that has forced the US government to declare Gotham a lost cause. Bridges are destroyed, the city has been cut off from the rest of the country. Batman and the rest of the Bat family work tirelessly to keep the city alive. The story also introduces Cassandra Cain as the new Batgirl, a silent, deadly fighter seeking redemption. This story is really interesting because we see a Bat family that is working without a lot of the resources that they normally have, and they kind of have to adapt to new situations. Alright, next up, we're going to go over the most overrated Batman story in my opinion, but it's still a classic, so I'm going to put it on the list. We got Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee. In this story, we see a mysterious figure named Hush, who has been manipulating every major villain, from Killer Croc to Poison Ivy to Joker, all of them. Hush has been orchestrating elaborate traps targeting Batman. The mystery weaves through Bruce's personal life, including his rekindled romance with Selina Kyle. Batman also faces off a mind-controlled Superman in this book, which is one of the most iconic Batman and Superman fights ever, even though it's a little lame. I don't know. I think the story is super overrated. I think Hush is a really lame villain and lacks the impact that he should have, because really cool concept, really cool character design, but I think the story falls a little flat overall. I'd still recommend it if you're want to be a hardcore Batman fan and you just want to read everything. This definitely is one of those essential stories, but you don't have to, it's not required. All right, next up on the list, you're going to have to read Under the Red Hood. This story follows Jason Todd as he returns from the dead, taking on the identity of the Red Hood. He wages a lethal war against Gotham's crime underworld, specifically targeting Black Mask's empire. Unlike Batman, Jason kills without hesitation. The emotional climax comes when Jason forces Bruce to confront the Joker. Jason demands to know why the Joker still lives after everything he did. Bruce's refusal to cross that line devastates Jason. Their relationship fractures completely. Under the Red Hood is one of the most iconic Batman stories ever written. It's so good. Jason Todd is such a cool character, and the Red Hood is such a cool concept, and this is pretty much the best it gets. Jason Todd really struggles as a character in a lot of future books, but here, he's perfect. And honestly, I think the movie is a lot better than the book. So if you want the best experience of this story, go watch the movie. It's really good. All right, the next book I'm gonna have you guys read is Batman and Son by Grant Morrison. Now, you could read the entire Batman run by Grant Morrison, but Batman and Son is a paperback that specifically just follows the origin of Damian Wayne. Now, in this story, we see Talia introducing Bruce to Damian, his biological son. Raised by the League of Assassins, Damian is arrogant, lethal, and conditioned to rule through violence. He attempts to prove himself by defeating criminals ruthlessly and also brutalizes Tim Drake Robin. Bruce struggles to connect with Damian while also trying to deprogram him from League of Assassin ideologies. Over time, Damian's desire for approval becomes clear beneath the bravado. Okay, so next, you're going to want to read Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. This shows Dick Grayson acting as Batman with Damian Wayne as the new Robin. Really interesting dynamic, really cool story. Now, from there, you're going to jump into Batman Incorporated, which shows the return of Bruce Wayne, and then you can hop into the New 52 with Batman, The Court of Owls. This is a really good jumping off point for Batman, and if you want to skip all the previous stuff, you can really start here and it won't hurt you, Now, after all of these essential stories, if you would like to keep up with more of the modern day Batman runs, you can really easily track them just by looking up the author's name. We have the Grant Morrison run, the Scott Snyder run with the New 52, Tom King's run covers Rebirth, then we have James Tynion, Chip Zdarsky's run, and then now currently we are on Matt Fraction's Batman run. It's pretty simple. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it all, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button and drop in the comments down below your favorite Batman comic book of all time. Let's talk about it. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys later.